Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, the 9th of December, and this is the Ag Markets Blast with myself and the awesome Angie, who has just joined. So let's invite her on down. Invite sent. And here she is. Hello.
I'm here.
You're here. Let me
How are
quickly.
you?
I'm very well, thank you. Let me just quickly do the legals. Nothing discussed on this space session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, Trainers PIQ or PIQ Suite, or its affiliates, including the host, which, as we all know by now, is the awesome Angie and the slightly less awesome me. Um, I'm currently in a very wet Malta, so it's a kind of an outdoor broadcast. Um,
Ooh, that doesn't sound like
yeah.
a fun place. Well, very wet malt. I guess it's yeah. I'm
I was promised 20 days of rain all year, and apparently they looks like they've had two whilst I've been here for 2 days. So yeah, so they were only yep,
Congratulations.
their
That
upside is they're only due another 18, I guess.
I
But
was gonna
anyway,
say, yeah, you nailed it on the timing. So, all right, this week, right? I'm kind of like starting out today, and I'm like, what isn't happening this week? That's probably a shorter list because I feel like between central bank decisions and like CPI data and like Syria falling over the weekend, China
yeah,
and their meetings, like it's just a handful of things that can impact grains both directly and indirectly that we're paying attention to, but I did pick, right, starting point or bullet point number one that I think is probably the most important, at least could be the most important going forward, is what the heck is China doing? Because we did see from the Politburo committee there today, like some pretty decent changes in their verbiage used to describe what they want to do with monetary policy. And there's a handful of folks out there that are like, hey, this is kind of close to what we saw described, post the financial crisis, and this is maybe what we've been waiting for. But at the same time, flip side, the other analysts that have been kind of bearish China for a while remain bearish, even though we really didn't get any sort of specifics in this sort
well,
of this
this is the
conversation.
problem, right? So this is my one interjection that I'm allowed per
Yes.
episode. So this is the problem with China and the Politburo, and when they come out with these sweeping measures, it's to maybe, in my very simple terms, it's fur coat, no knickers. By which I
Yes.
mean there's a lot of chat, but we always see the same thing over and over. We get a lot of chat, broad strokes. There was no real kind of precision in the language. It was just pretty much like, oh, we're going to do everything we can.
Yeah, we're going to throw
And
everything at it. The
yeah,
biggest thing to
and
me was the domestic demand.
yes, which is something that is definitely being kind of forgotten about, and like that is, not just in terms of ag markets, but it's, Chinese domestic demand on pretty much all fronts has been suffering. So I just
Yes.
see a little bit of caution on what comes out of this in terms of physical stimulus, because
Hmm.
it's they do seem to rely on their rhetoric a lot more than perhaps they should.
It'll be interesting to see because I feel like they've tried it like since September and they've had these sort of like it's alive moments and then they don't provide what they need to and the market just kind of is like, well, the heck with this noise, I'm going to park my money elsewhere in the
Yeah, this is
wash,
it.
rinse, repeat.
We
And
get
so
pumped and then it falls off when
yeah,
nothing is. Yeah,
but we do
exactly.
have the economic, what is it, the economic work or holy crap, now I can't remember, the Central Economic Work Conference this week.
Yeah, that's this week. Yep.
So that should be something big, but we usually don't get the information directly out of them after these conferences. It's something that's kind of wait and see mode. But I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, like obviously, you have to take everything with a little bit of grain of salt, especially when it's from China. But the biggest thing to me is that the argument that we were seeing them go into the wasteland or that we were going to see them just kind of collapse and demand was going to be exceptionally poor. Like, I think you can toss that out the window. Now, do you see a tremendous surge in demand, a la the 2010s through 2020 style where they just kind of take everything in that they can get their hands on? I'm not sure. But one of the
Right.
things that is most interesting and kind of hides underneath the bullet point of point one here for me right now is, what happens with the used cooking oil exports? Because that's kind of been buried underneath a lot of different things. And, with the lack of clarity with these biofuel blender tax credits here in the US, there's just so much uncertainty that feels bearish. But, one of the things that I saw over the weekend that I thought was super interesting and would kind of play underneath this whole stimulating domestic demand thing was that China is looking to limit those UCO exports because they would like to kind of focus on sustainable airline fuel production themselves.
Right.
And
Keep it
so
domestic.
That is huge if we were to see it, because one of the things that we've seen is a significant displacement of soybean oil, here in the US and around the world, because China has been able to export their palm oil or their used cooking oil or whatever for ridiculously cheap. Obviously palm oil has spiked here recently, and that's made soybean oil cheaper. But I think one of the things that we tend to fall into here in the US specifically when looking at grain market analysis, and this does spill over into the world analysis, is that if it doesn't work in the US, it's not working elsewhere. And that's
Right.
bunk. That's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah. Yeah.
looking at some pretty substantial expansions of biofuels use in Indonesia, India, China, all over the place. And Japan is going to, start to use ethanol, even though they can't really produce it themselves. They're going to be importing ethanol. There's a lot of things that are taking place that I'll be watching. And so to see China work to stimulate domestic demand, super huge. Point two, Syria falling doesn't have a direct impact on grains, I don't believe, but it does throw some pretty deep mud on the face of Putin, potentially, or
Yeah.
at the very least, it makes Iran and Russia look like losers in this scenario, and neither of them like to look like losers. Does
Yes.
that, impact Ukrainian peace talks going forward from Putin? Like, is he going to, have this happen with Assad and then go ahead and agree to peace in Ukraine in like 2 months' time?
Yeah. Well, this
I
is
don't know.
it. And just on that as well, obviously Russia
Yeah.
now, Russia will have lost their Mediterranean blue water port, which is
Yes.
some strategic significance. And I'm glad you mentioned the Iran thing as well. So I saw some headlines this morning that some analysts that are far more informed than me are suggesting that the fall of Assad and Iran's connection there means that it has moved the needle a little bit in terms of making the Iranians more likely to kind of go after this the nuclear bomb rather than just kind of like the peaceful purposes kind of rhetoric that they keep trying to put out there. But they
Mm-hmm.
could be kind of just as a show of force, almost like what you said with Putin. Like, they've just taken a kick in the balls.
Yes.
Are they going to really kind of lie back now? Or are they going to like kind of, reassert their strong men or strongman person vibe that
Yes.
they love to give off? So it'd be an interesting one to watch. As you
It,
said, possibly not a direct impact on grain markets, but these things are all filtering through.
It'll be interesting to see too, because one of the primary destinations for Russia with their stolen Ukrainian grain was the Syrian port. They were
Right.
kind of laundering grain through there, and so to lose that, I think could have some
Yeah.
importance as well, and just really remains something to watch in the geopolitical side of things, simply because you just don't know what happens next. Now, to celebrate his fall doesn't really sound like it's the next step either, based on the group, like I and like you said, there are people far smarter than I in the geopolitical realm, but it doesn't sound like whoever is taking over either is someone that we're all
Yeah,
super
right.
pumped about.
Yeah, this is
So
it. It's not exactly being replaced with a nice guy.
yeah, exactly. Like the Al Qaeda linkage and being listed as a terrorist group with the U.S. I mean, but the enemy of our enemy is our friend or whatever, too.
For
I guess
now.
so. Yeah.
For the next couple of days.
Exactly, at least until we change our mind. But last point, export inspections this morning. We're going to continue to watch. We get them every Monday at 11 o'clock Eastern. That's one of the beauty parts about grains, is we get, export sales on Thursdays, and then we get the inspections on Monday. And the nice part, what we like about inspections, or maybe that's backwards, we should do inspections Monday and then Thursday since it's chronological, but whatever. Inspections give us an indication of like, what's going, like, you can sell
Right.
grain and you can still have cancellations. You can sell grain and maybe someone's sandbagging or someone's front loading or whatever. And so what's nice about inspections is it gives us insight into who's taking what as quickly as they're taking it. And with the large package or large program, large amount of corn sales to unknown, inspections can help us to maybe see, does China end up in the lineup even though they don't have a significant amount of corn bought? So
Right.
those will
Yeah.
be the things that we'll be watching for here. And that, I mean, there's a ton of other things, but those are the top three. Tomorrow we'll have a USDA report. We'll touch on that in the morning on what to expect there.
Absolutely fantastic. I think we allow ourselves a bit more extra time on a Monday, but especially because I did have two interjections, so I'll take the blame on this one. But there's
Yeah,
always more to talk about on a Monday.
there's always more to talk, especially this Monday. Oh my
Well,
gosh.
yeah, right. Cool. Well, look, Angie, thank you so much as always for giving us the roundup. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. And hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. And hopefully I'll be able to go outside in Malta tomorrow rather than be stuck in my hotel room because it's great. I might go to the pub. Who knows? But anyway,
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. See you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.